away and left me back in the problematic situation of being born out of my mind. Rolling back onto my back, I once again looked up at the pipe-covered ceiling. Then changed to glance back at my pip-buck and the two remaining memory orbs Clip had given me. I intended as I was to view another memory orb, especially given the chance that I may once again get an opportunity to see the utterly gorgeous mirror that was Squeaky Belle. Right now, I just wanted to find out what was going on in the real world. Upon arriving at the decision, I once again tried to stand up, this time taking things far slower as my aching limbs quivered underneath me. After a long few moments of holding myself there without collapsing, I finally dared take a step off the mattress. But then I almost fell right on my face. Okay, the concrete floor was cold, wet, and slippery, all points which I had noted. Nevertheless, I trotted forward best I could, careful not to wake Cherry as I moved past her and over to the door. Beyond the crooked brick arc, which was followed by an equally dilapidated brick corridor, the walls crisscrossed by rusted pipes, tired wires, lined with rows of disintegrating lockers. To the right was nothing but darkness, while to the left was another room illuminated by the flickering light of a fire. Left was the direction I successfully chose, and I once again found myself comforted with yet more catwalks. Great, I muttered to myself. Fortunately for me, however, these fragile walkways did not cross the gloomy factory floor that lay beneath many of the catwalks, but instead turned sharply to the left, forming a metal stair along the wall leading up to what appeared to be some sort of office, identifiable by its barred windows. Light shone through the shattered glass and illuminating at least half of the craft-strewn factory floor below me, with the shadows of the bars breaking the illumination with great bands of darkness. In the gloom, I could just make out the skeletons of disassembled robots, as well as the furnaces, conveyor belts, rollers, and various industrial cutters which were all buried beneath the piles of sharp pieces of metal and pools of brown water. Every shadow moved as if it were alive. The red bars on my EFS made me more wary of each one. I had to assume most were just rat roaches, even as I thought I saw the flash of insectoid eyes in the gloom and heard the ruffling wings. Looking out, I had a hard time distinguishing between what was once a robot manufacturing factory and what appeared to be equipment for a steel mill. Yet every factory in this place was so tightly compact together that it wasn't hard to imagine them as one large industrial center all feeding into the heart of the city. In fact, some of the hulking things buried in the rusty mess looked like war tanks. A large mural painted on the brick to my right said as much. The heart of all industry is its workforce, working to save Equestria in every way we can. Stayed a picture of a stern, yet proud orange mare with a triple apple cutie mark, freckles on her cheeks, and an aged gray mane. The Ministry of Wartime Technology, then that would have been the one known as Applejack. I didn't like how much I'd been thinking about those pre-war mares recently. It was unnerving to say the least, even if the statuette of flashlight I'd found had made me feel wonderful at the time. With that superstition prominent in my mind, I swiftly began up the stairs, which, given my weak state, was easier said than done. I could almost imagine a giant pony on the mural coming to life and chasing me up the rusted incline with false promises of the bright future and salvation. I'd have succumbing to such a patronizing fact if it had been real, as I fell flat on my muzzle one step away from the top of the stairs. Now the spinning in my head had been increased tenfold, and my guts, well, I swear somebody was standing inside me, and even though I had not eaten in days, it was about not to cough up bile. I felt the cold metal of the staircase as it bruised my muzzle, and the foul smell of rusted iron filled my senses as the dull pain of the impact began to fade. Then there was a sharp creak as the door to the office opened and a familiar blue and gray blur rushed out. "Hey, you okay?" Club asked tentatively as he cautiously made his way over to me. I staggered to my hose and nodded best as I could as I wiped my stinking nose. "I'm fine, don't worry." I said, dismissively waving a hoof. He looked skeptical, but didn't look like he wanted to challenge my reassurances. I tried to give him my best smile, but the coal still looked at me as if I were some monster ready to gobble him up. Or still, he looked as some part of him felt he deserved such a horrific fate. How about you? You doing okay? Okay? I asked kindly, and he just looked more unnerved. Dragonfire. Have you ever heard of the term "don't talk to strangers"? I know you're awful at looking at following that advice yourself. But now? Well, now you're that stranger. I consciously suppressed the idea from my thoughts, not willing to completely disregard it before I had the cold, dull response. He shook his head. Now I was ready to drag those doubts to my predicament right back where I needed them. Eric's not doing very well. Sky won't tell me what's wrong. She's just shouting. So you grab a friend. She just told me to keep watch out here, he explained with a sigh, nudging a shotgun with a hoof. Didn't like where that train of thought may lead him. If one of his friends was so gravely wounded, then he should at least be allowed to be there for them. The confirmation of my other travel companions' whereabouts was also a welcome relief. If I never thought I'd still find her still here. I just assumed she'd have left on her own by now. A moment later, a small cold caught my attention as she shrugged weakly. But I bet you don't want to know anything about that. I should just be apologizing, he added with an equally despondent tone. I swallowed my guilt. Knowing that too much remorse would cause me to become too emotional, which would further upset my turning stomach and increase the likelihood that I would vomit once again, I took a step towards Clip and struggled to give him a reassuring or sincere smile. At least now my vision was clear and I could see his face. He was small and meek, clearly. It had something to do with his savers and had been on the wrong end of their peaking order. If I had all the food in the wasteland, I had given it to him right then and there. And yet the best I could do was be kind and hope he wouldn't villainize himself so much over something that wasn't anybody's fault but his own. You still beating yourself up for having shot me? I asked in a nonchalant tone of voice, raising a hoof to my chest. He shied away but nodded. I shook my head and raised a hoof to my side. I had no shorter scars, and after pulling a few out of the more innocent ones out, I swear I saw a smile across his muzzle beneath all that filth and guilt. It's just another one for the collection. Heck, I should be getting mad at you for not getting me as good as whoever did this, I added, pointing a rather bold scar hidden beneath my mane. Clip gave a slight nod. I thanked the goddesses. I finally discovered that he could laugh. You get them all saving ponies? He asked. The relief seemed to bring out the pony he really was, if only for a moment. I seem to be getting good at doing that to ponies and I nod in response. Fair share of them, yeah. A voice somewhat proud. Even if whatever remained of my conscience insisted that I was far from true. With that, however, I managed to get onto the same level as the coal without him bolting the rear end. While appearing slightly cautious, he didn't seem to be afraid that I might take some sort of revenge. No, I was surprised a pony like you even needed saving. You took me down with no problem, I said with a feeling of admiration, giving him a better view of my wounded limb. Okay, so that wasn't entirely true either. The sight of Cherry's ear and what felt like several days' worth of exhaustion had brought me down. Not to mention my stupidity, a crippled limb, and a fight with a giant mutated creature. Regardless, he seemed to look upon the fact far more lightly. So, do you feel like letting bygones be bygones and maybe even be friends? I asked, holding out a hoof. He shied back at that slightly. I thought the friendly gesture might have discouraged him as he regarded my hoof like a live grenade. The look in his eyes unbearably similar to what I'd seen in Cherry's eyes on the day we'd first met. After a long moment of cautious speculation, He finally took my offer and shook my hoof with his own. I'm Dragonfire, by the way, I said casually. Spark Clip. Everybody just calls me Clip. He responded swiftly. Spark Clip? I wasn't too sure of the meaning, but that was a good name. So, what about your friends and Gina? Are they around? I kinda wanna have a word with the pony who bashed me up, I asked, and he nodded slowly, the weapon and gear upon his back rattling as he did so. Skylark is in New York, and your Griffin friends just are there, he stated, pointing a hoof into the office. Then he frowned and looked away. She's not good, though. Arc, I mean, he added, with a pained look on his face. My look turned sympathetic, but I nodded. Well, I'll see if there's any way I can help, I assured him. Great! Freedom False Hope, Dragonfire. Are you trying to acquire another flawed prodigy already? Did you get tired of having to deal with your mare friend with a bleeding heart? Or are the ones still asleep downstairs? Hopefully this call won't go galloping off to try to save everybody and their sister and increase their chances of getting yourselves killed out here in this forsaken world, my mind elaborated, feeding my imagination horrifying images of Cherry's injury and repeating the words about how much she mattered I'd uncontrollably uttered to her over and over. I tried my best not to think about it. My mind belittled me for that too. When all else failed, I simply trotted on, leaving Clip to guard the stairs as instructed. I just really hoped things were not as bad as I was imagining them to be. The office I found myself in the moment later stole my attention slightly. It looked identical to the one I'd seen in the Sweetie Belle memory orb. Well, not counting the hundreds of years of raw decay. Not to mention the rusted heavy-duty glass shutters which had sealed over the large window on the far side of the room, thereby hiding that disgusting view of the city. The walls were peeling off flakes of rust scattered about its base, while the humidity made them seem as though they were almost weeping, and the portraits that had once sat upon them either like scattered on the debris-strewn carpet or were hanging crooked. The desk sat before me, his one fine wooden surface now sunken and marred by dry moss, mold, and dirt. It was much closer to a hazard than the piece of officious-looking furniture I'd seen in my memory. The rusted filing cabinets and shattered display cases about the room were no better. There was one thing atop the desk that had also failed to stand the test of time. It seems my recent fetish for ancient photos was not dissuaded from the almost unrecognizable depiction of four smiling fillies sitting in a large orange fruit parade float. I never completely understood those ancient ponies. What with their mad experiments, powerful mega spells, corrupted politics, and writing about the conveniences resembling a giant pumpkin? I suppose it was the most minor of all their evils, even if it were one of their strangest. The particular image didn't hold my attention for long, however, as the sounds of weak chatter caught my ears and I fell silent. On the left side of the room was a door to another corridor, the one the bug in the memory seemed to have been guarding. It was also the source of flickering firelight and the direction from which the chatter was coming from. Therefore, it was perfectly logical that it became the direction I swiftly found myself following. The first room I came across was on the left, and looking in, I saw what appeared to have once been some kind of storage area. Now, the space between the cabinets was occupied by a griffin. She didn't seem to take every chance she had to maintain her armor and weapons, and this was no exception. I take it the raiders didn't give you too much trouble in them? I asked, stepping through the doorway and leaning my way on one side of the crooked frame as I tried not to let my discomfort show too much. She looked up quickly, slightly startled. A response she instantly attempted to hide, I observed. Less than you, it seems, she retorted, stirring my forelegs. I rubbed one of them against the other and felt guilt and shame well up within my chest. There were complications, I admitted. Colt shot you, I know. Damn kid is obviously good with that gun of his. The least you could do is shoot at the right fucking targets, she responded in a bear-sounding tone. I opened my muzzle to say something in close defense. The thought of inciting an argument with the griffin dissounded me, and I fell silent. And your other friend? Jeez. I didn't know you were find these ponies. I'm surprised that their naivety hasn't gotten you killed yet. Either you're good enough to be considered a one-man army, or you're still alive by sheer dumb luck, she went on, leaving a tone of frustrated emphasis. I gritted my teeth at the idea she was talking ill of Cheria and her actions. How is she? Wait, what was it that she just asked? I paused, looking at her as if I'd seen a gust with reality flooded back to me, and I stuttered. She's about as fine as any of us. She's a little bit shaking and exhausted. Otherwise, she seems fine, I assured her. Of course she is, she then responded snidely, aiming a talon to the side of her head, exactly where her ear would have been if she were a pony. My expression fell into my usual serious frown, masking my true feelings at her response, and I felt my anger simmer. Well, that mare through there, Skylark, whatever her name is, seems good at making do with what she asks. She certainly saved her flank from bleeding out anyway, Griffin added, then smiled. I guess that human ponies needed saving once in a while. I shook my head and turned my tail to her before I could get too pissed off. I'll remind you that you should continue to need my help, I retorted sharply. Well, I hope you've got a while, because you'll be waiting for that day for a long time, she called back with a nonchalant, easygoing tone of voice as I continued down the corridor I had chosen to journey down. Yeah, well, you wouldn't be saying that if you knew what would happen to you at the radio station if I hadn't come along, I thought scornfully, recalling the horrifying fate of Buckshot as I stalked past the crooked doors of an old elevator and reached the last of the rooms, the one where the firelight was the strongest. I'm fine, Sky. I don't know why you worry so much. Mare's voice coughed weakly. I paused, ears standing tall. I'm worried about you, both of you. And don't give me that I'm fine crap. I'm a doctor, and I know that you're not fine. Another, far more frazzled sounding mare responded, which was soon followed by a loud clarinet. Fuck! Sound mare suddenly growled as the sound of what I could only assume was her limited equipment hitting the floor rang out from the room's interior. It was hard to identify which of the two mares was Sky and which was Orky given their conversation. It wasn't hard for my mind to remind me that eavesdropping on two seemingly good ponies was wrong. Without knowledge shaming me, it made my presence known. Skylark, I assumed, was a light blue unicorn mare with a pale gray mane and had a few red crosses flanked by two white feathered wings for a cutie mark. Orc was Earth pony, who, as her main suggestion, was a pale orangey brown with a cutie mark of a gemstone sitting atop a pile of dirt. Her mane was dark brown and her rear legs and neck were wrapped in bloody bandage wraps. The mattress under her was no cleaner, nor were the improvised medical supplies beside her. Nevertheless, she couldn't bear the expression of hopelessness I'd seen in so many other dying ponies. She merely looked woefully content, and the look of admiration of the pale blue mare frantically tending to her. Sky just looked impossibly frustrated and frazzled as she cursed at her falling medical equipment. Seeing her made me have second thoughts about confronting her about my condition. But the moment I had that thought, it was too late. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be walking, Sky had told me bluntly, swiftly returning to work without so much as a glance, a batch of Kim's lifting in her magical grip. I failed to notice that I'd drawn their attention as Orcre looked at me far more kindly, wincing as her frantic companion went to work on her rear legs. Good to see I was right about your ability, Sky, she mumbled weakly, giving the pale blue mare a knowing look as the doctor injected her patient's limbs. Say that for when you're out here and not dying, she retorted frantically, then glanced at me. That Philly's leg was nothing too major. I wasn't as concerned about using Hydra on her as I am on you. You are struggling as it is, Sky responded as she returned her attention to her work, waving her horn over Orchid's limbs as it began to glow. There. The anesthetic spells are going to keep you immobile for now. But by the gods, I swear you're going to be fine, love, Sky added firmly. Oh, this was one of those situations? Well, there weren't any further thoughts of ogling either of the prey mares before me. Thinking about things more seriously, Sky looked like she was fighting a losing battle to save some pony she loved. Now I saw the many blood rags and bandages beside the desperate mare in the whole neon light. My initial inattentiveness of such things faded as similar memories of my past resurfaced. Don't mind, I'm not going back there, I growled, yet the painful memory persisted. Sky gave Orchid a light kiss on the cheek as unconsciousness took the earth pony. With each passing moment, I could see the pale mare was hoping that her beloved's sleep would not be permanent. Then she gave a slight sniff, wiping her nose and leaning back, her rump resting on the floor beside her sleeping mare friend. A set of used medical supplies, and an old revolver which seemed to be her only foreign weapon. Goddess, I could really use some wild Pegasus or something right now, she huffed. Thanks for what you did, I told her carefully, lighting up and gently wriggling my once crippled hoof. Sky sniffed again, trying to hold back her tears as she nodded firmly. Like I said, you weren't anything too difficult, no offense. The gunshot had clipped your upper subclavian artery. Once I had the bleeding under control, it was nothing which some regenerative chems couldn't fix, even if I hate using them because of the risks. Oh, well, at least she tried her best to tell me alive while pumping me with dangerous chems then, I sneered, only for me to shake this night idea out of my head. What? Don't you know Hydra can make your heart stop? But you only had one major injury, and it was the one I could treat. It was exhaustion that really brought you down, though. Still, Cliff's kicking himself for shooting you. Your friend. She looked at me and to mention a cherry, then at her sleeping mare friend. I wish I could have saved her ear. She insisted I use everything I could to help you, she admitted, sounding despondent and disappointed that she wasn't able to save Cherry from her rare disfiguration, looking at her hooves. I shook my head, slowly raising the hoof to her to stop. No, that's my fault. You look like you have your hooves full as it is, I assured her kindly, glancing to Orchid as she slept. She glanced at her sedate mare friend, a hoof on her forehead. Several bullet wounds, fractured limbs, ribs, broken legs, and a whole lot of internal bleeding. But the only thing making me desperate enough to put out a cry for help in this god's forsaken place. She listed the factors her dire situation as they were the only way to assure herself that she could help. Yet her tone was far from hopeful. If we were back in Crossroads, I'd be able to help her, get her walking in an instant, but... She trailed off, removing her hoof. Slavers don't take too kindly to ponies getting out of the cages, even with somebody else is shooting at them, she added with a slight sneer of anger. I knew that feeling. To hate the ponies that take everything from you, and to hate the wasteland for every grueling day it forces you to endure the pain. I swallowed hard, questions raising in my head that I didn't feel wholly confident in asking. Yet, I still had a job to do in Crescent Springs. It was right between me and Michael. You got Crimson Springs? I asked as steadily as possible. She nodded and paused. Never gone, really. Somebody attacked the caravan at the bridge. Might have been the Rangers, but I don't know. We broke out with the rest of the slaves. All of us just ran for it, but they gunned almost every pony down then and there. You're either a slave to them or a bloody paste for the raiders to smear on the road. They suffer from this thing they call the rage. Don't know what it is, but It makes him crazier than most, she explained. The rage? That happened when I'd overheard the raiders talking about. Then again, I was no expert on what made ponies that crazy. Living in a place like this would drive any pony mad. We managed to get here to the factory and, well, some street hungry raiders came looking. Clip knew away inside and the robots in the outer warehouse kept them out. None of those things are more useless than me. Sky levitated up some of her improvised medical supplies, then a raggy old bag filled with limited chems inside. Now to suck with a cold and a mere friend who don't know what it's like to see somebody they love falling apart in front of them. She added, placing her hoof back on Orc's forehead. My mind was racing, and yet I felt the cold coil of fear constricting my guts. I knew what it was like to lose someone close to you, and yet I didn't feel I had the right to sympathize with her, especially after presenting her with hope, only to have myself wind up the same way. She hadn't called for help to wind up having to save the pony that came to rescue her. Regardless, I still needed to get into the slaver city. Yeah, asking or even telling her such a thing may not even be the best option right now. I only thought of one thing that defied the wasteland and its misery. That emotion called happiness. Did you meet her in Crossroads? I asked, trotting forward and standing across the room from the pair, besides an old terminal on desk. Sky nodded, sniffling as tears ran down her cheek. Yeah, Towshead's doctor was my father. Never liked him whenever I would go out drinking. She was a barmaid with a knack for catching my eye. She told me it was a slightly warm smile as she rubbed Orker's forehead gently. Thinking about that was making her happy. That happiness was an anathema to the wasteland, and to know the wasteland was being affronted satisfied me immensely. Yet the more I saw her smile, the more I thought about what had driven my own past to be so dark. I'd been in her situation before. I knew the pain. And yet for her there was still that ray of hope. She was a medical pony. She could save her mare friend, the cold Clip. She even saved me from my own stupidity, not to mention Cherry's foolish behavior. What would I save when I was stuck like this? No, pony. Your friend was quite helpful. She got into more medical boxes than I could. I don't think I could have saved you fast enough without the extra supplies. Of course, she was worried about you like no pony's business. Sky told me as she stood, her magic wrapping around her improvised supplies and tidying them. I flushed slightly at the thought of Cherry's care and the sound of her voice while I was sleeping. I felt the heat of my blushing brow. I guess I'm gonna guess you two away from the slave farms, though. Sky asked, and I gave a tentative nod. Goddesses, telling her that made me far more guilty than I knew I should. She didn't seem to put off by the fact that Nod had been made to suffer in the infernal pit that was Crimson Springs as she placed her tool on the desk beside the terminal, however. Dragonfire, isn't it? Your Griffin friend told me your names when you were both out, she asked, and I nodded, saying somewhat shakingly. More of an acquaintance than a friend, I corrected, but not allowed the bitter thought to plague my mind for long. Skylark, I assume? I asked, and she mirrored my response, albeit without the distasteful thoughts regarding Gina. I wish I could say I at your service, but when you're abducted by slavers, you kind of lose your professionalism. She admitted with a subtle grumble. Name's weird, I know. Father was still having a Pegasus hole. He was always going on telling her that her family tree was littered with them. Don't ask me why, or how many mirrors he knocked up trying and steer in one, she added, then slumped. Though I sure wish I had some of my sisters to help me out now. I didn't think the raiders would be bold enough to attack Crossroads, I said, avoiding the subject of siblings. She smiled somewhat proudly, but then shook her head. No, as rare as they are, they have never come that far north before. But pressure from the rangers seems to be driving them. That or something else. Sunspot, the town mayor, allowed us to go out and help a caravan if they're wounded. Archer wouldn't leave my sight even though it was their day off. But then it turned out that the whole thing was a trap. She looked down at her hooves as she placed them on the desk. I saw too many good ponies die because they were willing to help, she added, sounding sorrowful. I glanced at Orker sleeping opposite as the mirror gave her a relentless twitch and a pained murmur. Goddess, if I could wipe every slaver from the wasteland, I would, I admitted. And then I garnered another confident grin from the pale blue mare. Jerry said something about how you rescued her in that panicked mess she called an introduction. She also said that if there was any pony who was a slaver, they should watch out for you. Though, of course, at that time you were scrumming around and bleeding everywhere. She made her claims kind of hard to believe. She pointed a hoof at me, and this time, guilt or not, I couldn't help but blush. This guy's smile widened slightly as she glanced at her sleeping mare friend. Say, you two, you aren't together, are you? She asked. I felt myself shudder and my heart flutter all at once. Then I felt as if I had been dipped in an impossibly cold water as the reality hit me. She looked away awkwardly, and I figured my reaction must not have been as appealing as she'd hoped. I shook my head soon after, trying to dismiss the fact with a wave of my hoof. No, we're just friends, I told her, the confession stinging as I uttered it. Jerry, that impossibly cute, and lovely mare with the fearless personality I knew her to possess. How could I not like her, and yet here I was. I fought her pony in this wasteland and tried to achieve a hopeless goal. And I liked her enough to try and spare her the pain of humility and that of that stupidity. It didn't help then. Then, the next moment I heard the familiar voice call my name. Jerry appeared in the doorway moments after my ears caught the sound. A pink mare sighed, seemingly in relief as she saw me standing there, especially for a long time. This guy's remark, still spinning my mind as the sight of my friend's bandaged ear fought to put such thoughts to rest quickly. I was looking for you. How are you doing? She asked, her eyes lingering on my quivering legs. The best I could manage was a subtle nod as the words caught my throat like barbed wire. She trotted forward, shaking the left side of her head as if agitated by the wound. I didn't help the words escape me any more than the sound of her soft voice did. More so as she approached and smiled. I'm glad to see you're up, she made quietly, almost shamefully. I found out to stare at her messing ear as the bloody stump of bandages lingered before me. But she shook her head again, but I couldn't help but look away. She's no worse off than the rest of us now, Sky admitted, looking back at me as she leaned against the desk. Jerry frowned slightly, but I doubt doing such a thing to the mare that had saved us both was boding well with her good conscience. She glanced back at me, still somewhat lost in a thoughtless stupor. How's your friend? She asked Sky. And Mare's repeat of Orker's dire condition was enough in the way of cold negativity to draw me back. Cherry sighed, shaking her head again. There are more medical boxes downstairs, but I couldn't find anything other than more pins and some rags. The whole medical room's collapsed, she added, looking at the several empty healing potions against the opposite wall. Sky shook her head too, yet more in slow disappointment than agonization. I know when I'm beat. I just never. She faltered, looking down at her hooves and closing her eyes tightly. We would need to get her back to Crossroads for me to make any kind of difference, she added bluntly. I paused, shaking my head slowly, then looked at Jerry. Where'd you find those supplies? I asked. She looked back at me with slight confusion, yet was swift to answer. Down the maintenance hall. The whole room beyond it has collapsed, she elaborated, raising an eyebrow and likely wondering why I was asking her such things. Then the look I garnered from Sky was equally curious. Okay, now was the best time I could think of to tell them what we need to do, even if I knew nobody would like it. Every factory has a medical room, but it's never the only place there are medical supplies, I stated. And Sherry's expression brightened slightly as she seemed to think the same thing. Sky did not share the pink mare's enthusiasm. but she did look like she had an idea. There may be one other place. They had a place which they used as a surgery room where they had to take the brains out to put them in their robots. However, the problem is, that's where all the damn brain robots are now, she explained, with another helpless and somewhat frustrated grumble. My whole faltered a little, and I saw cherries follow as I did so. Yeah, it was that moment I realized what I needed to do. I wanted to save the good pony in her. Well, it doesn't matter anyhow. There's no way there's enough supplies to fix that kind of trauma. It's easy to say I was barely able to fix you, or categorize that and stay. Sky exclaimed boldly, loudly, pointing to my leg, and then the cherries severed irrespectively. I swallowed the remorse. It tasted like a bitter soup slithering down my throat. I couldn't just sit by and watch this happen. I certainly couldn't let her watch hopelessly while the pony she loved died. If we get enough supplies, will you be able to get her walking again? I asked hopefully. Sky frowned and cursed slightly under her breath. Maybe. If you can find something strong, healing simulators, then her leg would be the only issue. She could walk with a brace if we helped her, and she's up to her main on medics. Last thing I checked, the brace was involved in brain surgery, so I knew there would be one down there. She paused, raising a hoof to her chin thoughtfully before seeming to lose hope in the idea that the room would have what she needed to treat her friend. Especially since it wasn't something needed for the type of surgical operations performed within. Even if we could do all that, it's a labor city between here and there. Not to mention the Brazen Key and the Steel Rangers. We never get through, she expressed coldly. My hope failed at that. So much for trying to pry our way out around Death Central from here and then. Untimely, I knew this would always be the case, and the wasteland had merely confirmed my fears. Wait, there has to be some way in all the train lines, the pipelines.
Well, there has to be some way in. All the train lines, the pipelines. Can't just be one way through the city.
Sherry suddenly stated, stepping forward, her once carrying form now regained some of his confident determination. I forgot about that idea, and at the reminder of how confident she could really look, I felt I should have done more to support her. Yeah, Sky shook her head. Even that, as far as Sherry's motivations were, they were hopeless. Obviously, you know nothing about Crimson Springs. There's one way in and one way out on each side. Train lines will be flooded and filled with gases and gnomoids. All the pipes across the rivers are busted, she responded, seeming to grow more frustrated as her only hope was slowly dragged away by her own declarations. There's no way over the river unless we go miles south past the Sheen, and there's no way I can take her that far, she finally stated, banging her hoof on the degraded carpet of emphasis. I saw Cherry's face flash. She tried to respond. Her words seemed just as reluctant to leave her as mine had been, and she said nothing. Then the room fell silent, all bar and crackling of the fire and the distant roar of the storm. I wished I could help, to save ponies, to be a good pony, but I lived in the wasteland long enough to know its real ways. I hated the scum which made their homes in this lawless desolation with a fiery passion. I've seen too many situations like this. I've seen so many ponies die and others powerless to stop it. This was all different, and it was hard to face the fact that the wasteland was once again going to win.
Sky?
A small, timid little voice asked, and all ears rose. Cliff was standing in the doorway. His eyes locked on the pale mirror that had rescued them.
That's not all true. I know another way through.
He admitted simply, and I smiled. Okay, Wasteland. You are not getting these ponies just yet. Footnote. Level up. New perk added. True Grit. If nothing else, you can take a breathing. No matter how hard somebody else has to work to put you back together. Instantly gain plus 10 damage resistance.